You're using your breath, you're using your teeth, you're controlling the back of your throat and how you breathe. I'm going from chest up into the top. And you could go a little bit higher, but that would be falsetto, and I don't teach my clients that. So that's how we move up, and then you start working with phrases and vowels, and then you start extending it into holding it. Hello, my name is Chrystal. And then you work with other phrases and then putting the inflection in. Hi, my name is Chrystal. Hi, my name is Chrystal Bartlett. I'm a transgender transition coach, which is a bit of a unicorn career. I've been doing it for 18 years in Raleigh, North Carolina. I got started in this business because quite a number of people work with voice. Now, I was an on-air DJ for 20 some years here in the Triangle. It's very, very popular to do voice work because you get paid more than you do for being on the air. So people switch genders. I can sound like an old lady. I can sound like a little kid. I can sound like I've got this kind of accent. I can do a 4x4x4. And, the more you can switch genders, nobody can see you, the more you get paid. So I already had that. And I was media training people. I had a job as a public information officer. And I was also media training people to make better speeches or how to deal with the hostile media, which I was pretty good at because I used to be the hostile media. And one day I was doing a class and our technician asked me if I could help him sound like a girl. And then I realized I was talking to she, and this wasn't for a play. It wasn't for any kind of performance. She genuinely wanted to learn how to speak like a woman. Wow. Well, I'm fresh out of grad school. I know my limits. And I went and searched. I told her, sure, I'll find somebody who is better suited. I know somebody's got to have more experience. But this is like in the year 2000. I looked and there was no there. I mean, sure, there's speech language pathologists and they can help you raise it. But yeah, I don't consider wanting to sound like a man or a woman as pathology. That implies disease. So to get back to client zero, after finding out that there was no there, I went back and deeper into my graduate studies because any aspect of speech other than what you write down for purists is considered nonverbal. Accent, for example, would be a nonverbal. Volume could be a nonverbal. Pitch could be a nonverbal, just as speaking very low and very slow is a nonverbal. We all have a voice. So I started looking further into my conflict studies and organizational communication, which was my thesis, and a lot of conflict comes about the difference and nexus between male and female communication. I'd already learned and learned more, deeper study on what was female-centric conversation. And I'd always been a student of nonverbal. I'll give you an example. When women want to change conversational sides, quite often that's preceded by an eyebrow flash and a look to the right while the conversation and tone may drop a little bit, like I'm doing right now. For a fellow, and I'm all about stereotypes. This is data and we are talking averages. I know everybody's different. Quite often they'll end it with, well, that's all I had to say. And there isn't that much eye contact. They don't look at each other as much. So having a verbal ender actually works a lot better for men. But if you are someone who was born and raised as a male, even though you're a female inside, acquiring the nonverbal habits of feminine speech need to incorporate the nonverbal. Oh, sure, you've got the higher pitch, but women's voices are going to vary a lot more. We talk high, we talk low, we go up and down as opposed to men who are very stable. And we also change volume and our tone, the rate of speed. I use a head voice approach, which is very much from the field of singing. And if you think about a belly breath, if anybody has done yoga, there is a practice where you take in a deep breath and you let it out going, ow. And that breath moves from your belly to your chest, and then it comes out of your head. And singers, particularly if they want to increase pitch, are going to try to get out of their chest. And if you feel a vibration in your chest, you'll know that you have a chest voice. And Quite often, if you don't feel a vibration higher up in your head, you'll know that you're still in your chest. I like to tell my clients that everyone is born with the correct equipment for this because we all have a vocal tract, we all have tongues, and we have this marvelous thing that lives in the back of our throats called the soft palate. And if you can manipulate the soft palate, that would be the little part some of us have, a little ball dangling down from the back. I can lift mine at will. Ah, 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 ah. Well, it's like any other muscle. I mean, yeah, it's autonomic that we breathe, but we also take control of our breathing. But nonverbal, a lot of people think of it as body language, kinesthetics. And it actually is quite different for men and women. It starts with how you're born. A male center of gravity is in the male's chest. But for a woman, it is in their pelvis and groin area, which makes us better suited for outer space, because we're going to turn around in a complete circle from the middle. But it's how you stand. And if your posture is chest forward instead of pelvis forward, I can change that. And zingo, you're going to start walking differently. Women also hold their hands closer to their body. Men tend to have a thumb out at the seam and the hands flat, and makes you look larger for one thing. So who knows? Maybe that's, a survival skill. Women have their hands gently cupped and they will go in front of their legs. They have their feet closer together when they walk, and the stride length is going to be a bit shorter. But I could go on and on about the body and talk about that. But what else is nonverbal that's going to change your presentation? Well, hair is. And I have lovely vendors that work on transition cuts or will just simply take you from male to female. Sometimes it's piercing, and I have a lovely piercer. And then there's makeup. I can teach you how to apply it, but I also have connections where I will get a special session with Clinique in one of their downtimes, and that allows them not just to learn to apply it. And though I do colors, I just don't have all of the colors in the Crayola box like Clinique has at their counter. But I do colors. We look at body styles, and we also examine what cut of clothing would be better for, maybe a pear shape or somebody's shape of like a triangle or an upside down triangle. Maybe you're a little overweight, maybe you're skinny. This is just something women that dress well take into account. And then we go on shopping, and because you're just starting something out, I'm certainly not going to ask people to invest a lot. Women's clothes can cost a lot, but I grew up with a family of 5 girls and I was the youngest. Hand-me-downs are us. And there's some very nice stuff when you start looking at Goodwill. I have used Bargain Box, Pause for Cause, Thrift Shop. That's a good way to try on a bunch of different looks while you're trying to figure out your style without spending a lot of money. I also have made a connection because I reach out to these vendors and there's a Dress for Success, and they have no problem seeing a transgender individual by private appointment if they're under or unemployed so that they can get those interview clothes. In fact, there's a wonderful ladies store, a chain called Talbot's, and they do shopping expeditions for some groups, and I heard about it while I was there at their 70% off sale. That'll get me in the door. And I asked about, these groups, if I came by with 7 or 10 women, we would come in before we open the store. Everyone will get individual attention. It's sort of like a shopping party. And I said, well, is there a special fee? And she said, you bring 20 people in the door, we're happy to see you. And I said, does it matter if these people are transgender? And she said, absolutely not. So I can get you hooked with the cheap clothes and the used clothes, but now it looks like I've got a line on some nice clothes too. But typically, my clients aren't very well heeled. I mean, there's nothing. Well, I used to say there's nobody poorer than 2 lesbians that are trying to adopt, but now I would say it would be a transgender male to female saving up for surgery. It's a costly enterprise. When the bathroom bill came about, well, my client Zero got so disgusted, she basically sold her house, left North Carolina, lived in an RV, and is now in a very accepting and affirming area in California. There was a lot more anxiety. And I am not a counselor, but let's get back to anxiety. I'm a performer. And anybody who's had to go on mic, stand up in front of a crowd, you can deal with anxiety without going deep into the psyche, shall we say. Nobody really psychoanalyzed me before I got up on the stage, or, my tips for anxiety were related to my head. It was behavior management. And I think that helped, because if you show anxiety going into the bathroom, that is sort of like, dogs can smell fear. So I really worked with my clients on how to enter a bathroom briskly with confidence. And if you look and smell and talk and walk like a woman, you are going to be considered and perceived as a woman. I have seen setbacks in my practice with people. Quite often it's emotional, or it can be financial. I have not had the money to come in and work with you because I'm saving for school, or, some medical thing, or maybe you just, you had a car wreck, you've got a big bill, life happens. And I always tell my clients, you have to practice, practice, practice in the car, practice all the time. I think it's from AA. They say don't get too mad, too glad, too sad, too scared, because that's where you're going to lose your voice, because you can make this your automatic voice. For me, example, I've been trained to sound like I was in the Midwest, preferably born next to Johnny Carson with a mic in my mouth. And that means no Southern, no Northern. But I will, under anesthesia, sound very Southern. For clients not being around, I had one client not be able to come in for 6 months. And even though she had practice tapes, the compliance, busyness, she felt like she had lost her female voice. Was tremendously upset. I had to remind her, we got it. If we're going to get it again, you're not going to forget riding on the bike. But if it's been 10 years since you were on there, you might not be the most styling cyclist there is. I've also seen people who have had a cruel experience and they think that they're absolutely ugly. And I have also seen depression associated with family acts. I am coming out to my family, or I'm coming out at work, or someone said something dreadful to me at work. I've also helped clients transition in the workplace and talk with their bosses. Basically, there's a bunch of HR materials out there, and they might not be aware of them, but I can certainly get them together and help with that letter. Ideally, you're going to put that note out and take about a week of vacation so everybody can get over it. Drama? I tend not to have too much drama. I have had clients, and myself cry together. Well, you can't cry with just two people in this house. I have a boxer, and she always comes and lays her head in the lap of my clients. I have a gift of humor, perhaps, in my practice. And if I see anybody too sad, as once happened, I have a client who's very anxious when we go shopping. I've just told her hysterical stories, bad interviews, things that have happened behind the mic that nobody knew, pratfalls, and I've got some pretty good jokes. So we talked, quick. What do you call two transgenders carrying a canoe? That's transportage. I know, bad joke, but if you're feeling pretty down, anything to distract, I think is good. And I touch people. They're not used to being touched. I hug. I let them know that they are welcomed. We sit down and start at the dining room table. And if there's drama, we move over to the sofa, because it's good to be enfolded and have a blanket and some hot tea placed in front of you. And that's how we handle drama. But most of it is external. I don't see a whole lot within my practice. People come here and they leave happier. But my clients build their confidence. They are, in general, less depressed and tell me that they feel more confident and happier as a result of the work that we're doing. And I think in the future, there may be more acceptance, particularly at schools, more practice from the speech language pathologist, but they still lack the nonverbal that I bring to it. And I think there are going to be more people like me who do that comprehensive service all the way around. And that's what I hope for the future. I also hope that the suicide rates come down and the acceptance goes up, because these are some of the bravest, hardest working, persistent people I know. I admire them greatly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.